So 4 years ago, around this time, I was paddleboarding the length of England and photographing every bit of litter that I saw en route. And the idea was that I would show people what this problem looked like, sort of firsthand from my individual experience. And I was putting on social media some examples of rubbish that I'd seen and using the hashtag Plastic Patrol to do it. And then by the end of that journey, this kind of campaign that I'd not really deliberately created snowballed.
Lizzie Carr's paddleboarding endurance challenges are what first highlighted her to the problem with plastic in our waterways, and then quite organically she started using those challenges to raise awareness to the problem, and she founded Plastic Patrol. Now all of this started because at age 26 Lizzie was diagnosed with cancer, and she turned to stand-up paddleboarding on her road to recovery. She's gone on to become the first person to ever paddleboard the full entire length of Britain's waterways, the first woman to paddleboard solo across the English Channel, and the first person to paddleboard the entire length of the Hudson River.
Hey Lizzie, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. You must be so happy since lockdown lifted the measures that you can get back out on the water.
Oh, honestly, so happy. I've only been out once, but I'm hoping to get out again in the next few days.
There's so many negatives around it, but it's really nice when you can eke out the positives, and it's so nice that you can get back out on the water. So if we could just go back a little bit, because your life you lead now is very different to the life, the work life and the everything life that you used to lead before you had your cancer diagnosis. So, I don't want to dwell on that too much because I know it was very difficult, but that's where you had your epiphany, wasn't it, of the life you wanted to lead and the life that you lead now. So if we could sort of go back to then and tell us how this all started.
Yeah, it was. I've always said my cancer diagnosis was the catalyst to everything. Like I really don't know what I would have done without that. Before I was just working like a normal 9 to 5 job, and I was like really unfulfilled. But I probably wouldn't have done anything about it. Like most people, I wouldn't have really put myself through any of the pain of having to find a new job or work out what to do next, or like be financially short for any reason. So just kept kind of doing what I was doing. But yeah, after I'd been ill, it was very much like this kind of moment where it just becomes really clear that whatever you are doing, whatever I was doing, is absolutely not what I want to do. And I suppose for me, it was very much like a feeling of survivor's guilt. Just people around me hadn't had this sort of same lucky outcome that I'd had, and yet I wasn't making the most of that opportunity, and I wasn't doing anything meaningful with like the second chance that I had. So I think all of those things combined really pushed me to take that sort of next step. So I ended up leaving my job, and I really didn't know what I would do next. I had no idea, and I didn't really care. I just wanted space to work out what would happen. And I spent about 6-7 months paddleboarding. I'd taken it up as a sport just because it was low impact and it was an easy way to get fit in my recovery. And it was giving me like the time and space to really work out how the rest of my life would look. And because I was spending more time on the water, particularly in London where I was living, and I was seeing how bad the problem was with plastic, I was becoming sort of more and more aware of it and more angry by it. And then snowballed sort of the campaigning and the endurance challenging and everything else that I've done since. So it really wasn't deliberate. And I always kind of think like I couldn't have even imagined or dreamt up what I've done, because it wasn't a job. It was just a sequence of events that happened and a sequence of decisions that I've made that have led to what I do now.
But that must make you so proud of yourself for going with it, because as you say, before this happened, you were very much sort of stuck in doing what you were doing and going with it. And then something changed and more opportunities came up. And, when you said that the sort of guilt of the survivor, I mean, it's very honest of you. And I know that's obviously given you another lease of life. And then you kind of had a second epiphany moment, didn't you, when you were paddleboarding and getting angry with all this rubbish. And it's amazing what you're doing now. Sort of, I mean, it's called Plastic Patrol, isn't it? It's sort of eco warrior. You're really cleaning up the waterways. So tell me a bit about Plastic Patrol.
So Plastic Patrol started as a hashtag when I did my first sort of big endurance challenge. So I decided actually yesterday was the halfway mark of the journey, but 4 years ago. So 4 years ago, around this time, I was paddleboarding the length of England and photographing every bit of litter that I saw en route, and I was plotting it in this sort of big interactive map. And the idea was that I would show people what this problem looked like, sort of firsthand from my individual experience. And I was putting on social media some examples of rubbish that I'd seen, just to show people what I was witnessing every day and why this was such an important topic to be talking about, and using the hashtag Plastic Patrol to do it. And then by the end of that journey, this kind of campaign that I'd not really deliberately created snowballed. And people were contacting me from all over the world asking, how can I help you? How can I be involved? How can I support this? So I turned the map that I created into an app, so people could crowdsource data about litter from anywhere in the world, and then borrowed a load of paddleboards and a van and just drove around the country inviting people to join me completely free. No one had to pay. The payment, their nature tax, was that they would pick up litter and log it in the app that I then developed. So that just became the name, that just became called Plastic Patrol, because that was the hashtag that I'd been using online. But there really was no, like, everyone's like, hey, now, how did you do this? What was the big plan? There was no master plan. There was no big strategy behind it. Everything just kind of happened.
Are you like, I wish there was, I wish I could detail it?
Massively. I'd love to be like, yeah, this was all part of what was meant to happen. Absolutely not. I'm glad it did, and it was what I wanted to happen, like to get this awareness and this kind of momentum around the issue, using adventure as a vehicle to get people thinking about it and talking about it. But yeah, it was no master plan.
But that's probably why you have such support, because it was such an organic process and it's really authentic. And as you say, it was all for free. You were doing it literally because you're getting so angry seeing all the rubbish, and you thought, I can actually do something about this by raising awareness as you're doing these records. So tell us a bit about the records. I know you were the first woman to solo stand-up paddleboard across the channel, and you just said you'd done the length of England, and I know you went on the Hudson River. So can you give me a little overview of all these incredible challenges that you've taken on?
Yeah, they've all been difficult in their own ways, and for me, the purpose of them has been, they've been great adventures, and they've been amazing opportunities to really kind of test myself and learn a lot more about me personally. And I would say the length of England one was very much like an eat, love, pray, love type of experience, where I was getting a lot sort of personally from it as well as I was environmentally. But all of them really have just been a way to talk about plastic, a way to talk about the environment. Because, I mean, going back to 2016 when this all started, no one was talking about plastic. And as soon as I would try to raise it or bring it up, or even like within my own network and my own peers, you just kind of get these blank stares, because no one was seeing what I was seeing and understanding it the way I was understanding it. But as soon as you couple that with a really great adventure, you know, about this sort of like camping and, you know, wild camping and foraging or whatever else you're doing on these journeys, suddenly people become really interested. So it's like, how can I attract people's attention? Okay, paddleboarding and great adventures, and then using that as a vehicle to talk about the environment. That was kind of my thinking behind it.
I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think, and it really has captivated a lot of people. So obviously paddleboarding came about because you said it was almost on your road to recovery, and giving you some headspace, you know, something for you to think about mentally. But these long endurance things, it's physically demanding on the body. You know, and anything for that amount of time is exhausting, but this is your whole body and you're balancing. So I imagine you've got core like no one else. So talk to me a bit about the physicality of what you do.
It is really exhausting, and I think one of the misconceptions around paddleboarding is that it's kind of very like romantic, and you see a lot of these pictures on Instagram of people like with crystal clear waters and sandy beaches, and it looks very relaxing, and it is that, it can be that. But you start throwing in tides and currents and winds and boat traffic, and all of a sudden it's a very, very different experience. And for me, especially the first challenge where I was still sort of in a more weakened state, I found it really, really physically demanding. But I think the fact that it was low impact, and you're building strength as you're doing the challenges, so you can train for them, but every day you're out on the water and you're building that muscle memory, you're just helping yourself really with the rest of the challenges that you're doing. But yeah, I mean, it's really, really tiring, especially, to be honest, the first one, the Length of England, even though that wasn't across a big body of water like the English Channel, you know, we chose the day that I crossed the Channel was when the weather was most favourable. So there was I had a nice tailwind pushing me along for a bit. But when you're on the canals and rivers, especially for me, because I was going upstream on a lot of it, I didn't have sort of the same elements kind of helping me. Like a lot of it's still waters. So it becomes really, really tricky. So there were a lot of moments where physically I just wanted to give up. Like I got carpal tunnel in my fingers, and something called trigger finger, which is just where your fingers like lock into a position and then just randomly like pop out. And that was just because I was holding sort of the board and the paddle, in the same position every day, day in, day out. So there are all these kind of little things that made it harder, but also more rewarding at the end of it.
Yes, super rewarding to go through all that. I had no idea. That sounds brutal, what happens to your fingers. At least they were in the right position. So
yeah, exactly. Just stuck around the paddle.
You going to sleep with it like, well, this is me now. So when you started talking about the plastic patrol and how it came about when you were doing the Length of England, I know you said it was, it's free, but how have you, because you gained a lot of attention now from big businesses. So how did you go from this app you created and getting people to raise awareness for the plastic pollution, and now you're talking to big names, big companies, and trying to get them to do something about it?
That transition took a lot of time. It's been 4 years now. And I self-funded Plastic Patrol for maybe the first 2.5 years, just to keep it moving. And then we secured a grant, not very much, but enough just to kind of cover the cost that I was covering, like the boards, the petrol, that kind of thing, to get around the country with these paddle boards. And we've had such amazing support from like volunteers and people that have got involved sort of on a pro bono basis to help grow momentum. I think now, particularly because of the app, and particularly because of the way that data has always been at the heart of what we do, it's not just about litter picking and removing rubbish, it's about logging it and recording brands and information about location and types of litter that we're finding, so that we can really identify patterns and trends. It means that we can talk to brands and actually, one, hold them to account, but two, work with them to find the solutions that they need to stop this problem from source. Whereas I think if we've just been going out and doing litter picks, yeah, we'd have a really great community movement, but that's not going to solve the problem. It's like someone once likened it to going to the site of an earthquake and with a dustpan and brush and thinking that's going to solve the problem. It absolutely isn't. So for us, it's always been, okay, well, we collect litter and it's all completely free, but by logging it in the app, it means that we can unlock the doors to these big brands and have these really, really important conversations that's sort of at the top.
Yeah, and try and go back to the source. As that's a great analogy with the earthquake. It must take a huge amount of your time. And I know originally when you started, you were sort of marrying the two of challenges to raise awareness and then doing the plastic patrol. Do you have any challenges on the horizon now? Is that still how you raise awareness, or is it rolling so much now that you're raising awareness just by talking about it?
Yeah, exactly that. I feel that, I mean, I love doing the challenges and they're great fun. But like I said, they've always served a bigger purpose, and particularly in the UK now, I feel like that awareness is there. I don't need to go and do a challenge right now to let people know that plastic pollution is a problem. I did 4 years ago, 2 years ago. Now it's about getting more and more data as more people are willing to come forward and roll up their sleeves and get stuck in. I want to make sure that we have all the sort of resources available to make people able to do that and make it accessible to as many people as possible around this country. And also then gathering data, like you said, it does take up a lot of time, and sort of getting these conversations, not just with industry, but with government as well, it's a huge task. But I think for me, the focus has to be on the data stuff and the information that we're collecting. It's definitely not as fun, but it is meaningful. It does allow us to do other things.
Yeah, and I think the challenge has got you to this point, and I'm sure there's some more challenges left in you.
I think I've got one more left in me somewhere.
But you did the Hudson River as well. That was purposely raising awareness in the States too, was it?
Yeah, exactly. So that was 2018. I did that, and America's one of the world's biggest consumers of single-use plastic and producers actually, and yet there was this complete lack of awareness. And I don't know if you've been to the US recently or whatever, but it's just everywhere, and it's this real fast-paced, convenient sort of mentality, and it's everything's double bagged. Even individual apples come wrapped in plastic. Like, it's bad in the UK, but compare that to the US, and we're sort of light years ahead. So I wanted to take the model that I'd created over here that had worked really well with Plastic Patrol, and use that in America by paddling down the Hudson, again, like a world first challenge. And I did quite a lot of citizen science activities in it. So I used a fin that had like sensors in it, which allowed me to measure water temperature and the motion characteristics of water, that then got fed back to sort of an organisation that works on that side of stuff. And then I did microplastic sampling and litter picks with local communities. So every possible touch point, I would try and make it as like scientifically valuable as possible. But I mean, going to America and doing something like that, you're not gonna make huge amounts of cut through. But the fact that I was able to talk to the communities that I was in and see this kind of ripple effect grow and grow the way that it has in the UK has been really quite remarkable.
Yeah, I think it's all remarkable, and I think I appreciate what you're saying about going. You must have felt like a very small fish in a big sea going over there, but you were making your mark, and you were doing your best.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of, I didn't expect to go out there and all of a sudden the whole of America were going to stop using single-use plastic. It was kind of the same in the UK. It's all just a slow, incremental journey, and it's about sparking conversations. If you can just get one people to change their mind and act differently, and then they can have that ripple effect in their network, all of a sudden you see it grow and grow and grow.
And it must be so rewarding to see it. And I know, as you just said then about, like single apples with 2 layers of plastic around them. I've done quite a lot of traveling with my work, and I'm the same as you. When I go to other places, I'm like, how is this happening? When you suddenly think we're quite ahead in England, that's saying quite a lot. And obviously your time is mostly spent sorting out England as well. So it's amazing what you're doing, and thank you so much for raising such huge awareness. And all this hard work, all your challenges and everything has led you to Style Magazine's Inspiration of the Year for 2020. So congratulations, that must have been awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Do you know, that was really lovely, because that was it was obviously shortlisted, which was amazing, but then down to public vote. So it was just really nice to know that people were like behind what I'm doing and really supported it. And the only downside of that is that the award ceremony where it would be announced was cancelled because it was the very start of coronavirus, and there were some amazing women that were going to be there, like Margaret Atwood, that I would have loved to have met. So that was disappointing, but nonetheless, yeah, I was really happy to have received that.
Oh, such a shame. Did they postpone it, or did they just have to cancel?
They just cancel it, yeah.
Oh, well, it's still yours.
Yes.
You just wanted the party.
I did.
Well, it's just had such a huge effect on anything. But also, when I was doing a little bit of research, you started doing a lot about greenwashing as well, which I don't think many people know huge amounts about it. So it's sort of the next stage in what you're doing, isn't it? Again, going back to the source and where we can try and sort out these problems. So could you tell me a bit about greenwashing?
Yeah, so greenwashing is essentially when a brand will try and communicate its products or services to be more environmentally friendly than they actually are. And they do this in really clever ways. It's often big brands that have a lot of budgets to be really smart with their marketing. And for me, as a consumer, but also somebody who I think is quite switched on to this kind of stuff through the work that I do, I still find it incredibly confusing. And I've purchased things in the past that I look at now and think, my goodness, how could I have fallen for that? So I think what I've tried to do is just help people navigate like the world of greenwashing a little bit. And sometimes, brands are really trying to do good, and it's just they're doing it in small steps. But I think the problem is, if they're not transparent about that, it looks like they're being dishonest. So I think for me, it's a way of encouraging brands to show people what they're doing. They might not be perfect. No one will ever be perfect, because it's an ever sort of moving goalpost to be fully sustainable. But just be really honest about your roadmap and your commitments. And if you don't achieve them, like, proactively share that and explain why. I think what the consumer needs is to have constant dialogue and communication from a brand to show that they are truly trying to implement the measures they talk about. And what I worry about is a lot of these brands making these commitments for very far in the future, like 2025, 2030, that by that time, you know, we've forgotten what they've committed. They've not really had any responsibility or obligation to fulfill it, and people are sort of still buying into these products thinking they're doing good. So we do need to call this stuff out 100%.
Yeah, well, you're certainly doing that. And what's next? You're obviously very, very busy at the moment, and you've got all these things on with Plastic Patrol, and you're now looking to bigger companies and seeing how brands can change things. So have you got anything else in the pipeline?
So we are running a campaign this summer. So we can't go out and do our cleanups quite yet in person, just because of the situation that we're in with coronavirus. But we're moving them online, so doing a lot of free sort of fitness and wellbeing activities on social media, and then asking people to go out and using the app afterwards to log data, so that we still get the valuable information that we need, and we can still give something that people can actively participate in. So that will launch from the 8th of June, and that's sort of the big project that we're working on at the moment.
So when this goes out, that'll only be a few days away. So that means you're going to be super busy at the moment.
Perfect. Yeah, it's quite busy right now getting prepared for that. But it's exciting because it's having to, it isn't exciting in the sense that we've not been able to run any of our cleanups so far this year. And I don't know what to do with myself. But it is exciting because, you know, we've had to adapt. We found it, we think, a good way to adapt and still be able to kind of keep the community feel of what we do, but actually still get all of the information that we need to take to brands.
Yeah. So with that, all that information, and combined with when you're in the Hudson, you're doing like little scientific experiments on the way. Do you like your science? Do you like your little geeky projects on the way?
I must do. I never thought I was a science geek, but I clearly am, because I get really excited about it. So that's one of the things I've learned about myself.
I could tell as you were talking about it, I was like, let that person out. I want to hear more. She's in there. And what's your takeaway? I mean, how can people get on board and help? And what's your takeaway through everything that you've been doing that people can do? Not necessarily if they can get to a cleanup, then brilliant. But if they can't, what can they do day to day to try and help this wonderful thing that you're doing?
I would say download the Plastic Patrol app. You know, if you can get to a cleanup and you can join us in person at some point when we relaunch, by all means, we'd love people to get involved. But even just going out and recording litter by literally photographing it and typing in the name of the brand and the type of, like, not just plastic, but any rubbish that it is a huge contribution. So I'd ask people to do that, and they can find out more about Plastic Patrol on the website as well.
Well, that's really good, because I've got two daughters, one of them who's 6. They do a lot about this at school. And whenever she sees litter, she's like, "Mommy, pick it up!" You know, and she's really, really passionate about it. I think at school they teach them that litter can cause fire, you know, and that's sort of to make them really think about it. So we will definitely download the app and make sure we can try and help out, because I've been talking to her about that. I'm going to talk to you. And she's like, "But how do we then collect the litter?" And I was like, "Right, we're on a paddleboard." She's in. She is so in. Is there a age limit?
Has she been paddleboarding? Have you been out on the water?
No, she's been out on the water lots, but I think paddleboarding not for a little while. But she's in. She's so keen. Is there an age limit?
It really depends. If you go out on your own, no. But some of our instructors that we have now, there's no under 16s are allowed because of insurance purposes. So it depends where you do it and who you're out with.
Oh, that's fine. She feels like that. Everything's, I'm never old enough. But I was just really happy to hear that the next generation coming through has an awareness. I mean, she's only 6, has an awareness. And so hopefully, you know, combined with all the good work you're doing, we will, using people power, clean up the planet.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I always find that when I go into like schools and do talks and stuff, it's the students particularly in secondary, that ask the most intelligent, engaged questions. Like, they really care and they're so angry, and I really feel it. And I think this is amazing. Like, we've got this sort of new generation coming through that really, really want to act and make a difference. And that, I think that's probably one of the main things that makes me hopeful and excited about the future.
It must really give you such a sense of pride and joy. You must sort of, like, when you go into bed, like I need to stop thinking about how excited I am about this, because you're making such a difference.
I definitely don't feel like that. I think when I go to bed, I think I need to turn my brain off, because I'm overthinking about 1,000,001 different scenarios about what could go wrong on all of our cleanups. I don't know, like, you know what it's like.
Right, well, you need to tell me how you switch off then, because I'm a nightmare for that sort of thing. So advise me.
I don't know yet.
Oh, well, it sounds great. And thank you so much for your time. And thank you for telling me all the amazing, inspiring things that you're up to. And I wish you the best of luck. I hope it keeps going well. And I'll make sure I keep following and see if there's another challenge in you.
Yes, and also come on a clean-up when we can go back out on the water. That's what you need to do.
Thanks so much, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you.
If you would like to hear more about Plastic Patrol, then I've put some links in the description below, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel so you won't miss your weekly dose of inspiration. Next Thursday, I'm speaking to adventurer Sarah Hestrider, who is in the middle of her world record attempt to become the first female ever to sail the 7 seas and climb the 7 summits.